I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be interested to see how you first got sponsors, and what it's like working with sponsors.
I feel like we work with sponsors differently than the majority of people on YouTube, and definitely way different than anyone who gets sponsors on Instagram. Those are two completely different worlds. But we attacked this in more of an annual sponsorship versus one-off videos or one-off post, which was pretty much all we heard from other people on YouTube was they did one-off videos or one-off posts or something like that. But there's no stability in that. So knowing that this was our full-time job, we really did look at it differently, trying to figure out what's going to provide us food for the entire year. So we do sponsorship annually. That's how we started. Right now, we're sitting at about 30% of our revenue is coming in through YouTube ads and our membership program. And then the other 70% right now is through annual sponsorships. We are doing more money through mid-roll ads as of late. And I know Rob can definitely talk more on how he figured out how to do this because, again, he's the mastermind behind how the ad revenue works. But yeah, I don't know. What would you say? I feel like we do things way differently because we do it annually versus one-off post. And the story of our first sponsor was a fun conversation leading into being profitable.
Just to speak from a high level, in the beginning, we didn't want to do the one-off stuff because, like, some of our friends on Instagram, they'll end up with 200 contracts a year because a contract is for a post or two posts. And that turns out, as it turns out, it's a remarkable amount of logistics. Not only that, but you're also really pushing and struggling, hoping that you're going to make ends meet at the end of the month.
Right.
So we did do things very differently. And again, my goal was to go to very large companies and say, hey, we're good for you. We're good for the industry. We're professionals. We look like TV and we're reliable. So I know you have, $4 or $5 million budgets. Give us a chunk and you won't have to babysit us. Because that's the other thing too, is that these companies that may have $4 million to spend, if they're going to spend that on a $1,500 or $2,000 Instagram post, that's a lot of contracts. And it's a lot of babysitting because each new person they work with, they have to go through contracts, get them to agree to everything, send them a product, and then check on what they produce. Did they produce it on time? Did it do well? All that kind of stuff where that's expensive. It's very expensive to have a full-time person managing all of that. So our pitch was, look, we're going to guarantee 48 episodes a year, giving us room to skip 4 of them out of the 52-week year. And if you choose to sponsor, us for a full season, which is 48 episodes, that's expensive. I mean, that's 6 figures. But that we sell them on the fact that we're extremely reliable. We don't put any personal stuff on our accounts. There's no chance that I'm going to get drunk and put a racist rant on my Instagram this weekend, which we've seen happen. We're a very safe, reliable, professional place to invest your marketing dollars. We also have a background in advertising. So when your team tells us, here's our message that we need to stay on, we know how to do that. We speak their language and we're good at doing that. So we did that and it worked well for, 5 years. We had very reliable income. We made great money. Alluding to what Sarah was talking about, our first major sponsor was a power tool manufacturer, which nobody back then had contracts with a tool manufacturer. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. And we showed them what we were doing. They believed in it. And again, we had them signed up within 6 months, and that one contract was enough to make us profitable, to cover our salaries, all of our expenses, everything. And then everything after that was just gravy. When we add, 3 and 4 more sponsors on top of that, it was just magic. But things have definitely changed. And it's partially just an industry maturing. We're also running into the issue of the agencies that are used by these big companies and their own marketing department. They may understand the different value in a long form versus a short form. Like when I create a short for a brand, that gets forced on people. It gets in their feed. They flip their thumb and there's my face. They don't have a choice. And they only have to stay there for 1 second for it to count as a view. When you go to YouTube, I am actively creating thumbnails and titles and content, and people are choosing to click on it. So when we have 100,000 people watch our show now, 100,000 people saw the thumbnail, saw our pitch, our title, and said, I want that. And then our average view duration for our channel is nearly 6 or 7 minutes, which is nuts compared to a 1 second flip.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a captive audience. And from a marketing guy's perspective, I'm like, that's worth way more. In the beginning, companies saw that as well. And we had those sponsorships. These days, what we're running into is shorts are just look too good on paper. So literally when we started doing shorts this last year for the platforms where it makes sense, our very first TikTok did 7.5 million views, which is bonkers.
That crazy.
Yeah. Especially at a time considering just a couple of years ago, 7.5 million views for our entire year on YouTube would be a great success. Like that'd be awesome. So for us to do that in a weekend with a TikTok is nuts. And the problem is that looks so good on paper. So when we're now going to these marketing departments and saying, hey, sponsor our show, we'll get you an average of, around, I guess this year is around 90,000 views per episode and an average view duration of 6-7 minutes. So a lot of engagement. And they go, great. But if they spent a few $1,000s sponsoring, one episode and on paper, they're like, I spent, $3,000 and we got 100,000 views. On that same sheet, they may have, we gave $800 to a TikToker and got 7 million views. And all of a sudden, they have to explain that while they may understand the difference, they still have to explain that to the people above them. So as it goes up the chain, you run into more and more ignorance about what that means. And instead, they're like, look, we gave you $2 million. What'd you get for it? And they're not going to sit there and explain the difference between 100,000 views on YouTube and 100,000 views on TikTok. Instead,
they don't look at watch time at all. They just look at views.
No. Yep. Because it's the simplest, dumbest number. And think about it this way too. And I'm trying really hard not to just get out of this chair and stand on my soapbox and get started.
You're getting there. Getting close.
I can feel it. I'm heating up. No, as a matter of fact, these companies, when they came to us, we had an executive from a tool company that, again, billions of dollars a year. These guys should know what they're talking about. This was the senior VP of marketing from this massive company. And he came over to us at an event and said, Rob, Sarah, so good to see you. Love what you do, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. Yep. We're big fans of yours. We love your stuff. And he goes, so how many subscribers do you have these days? And I got Sarah knows, and Sarah knows, like, that is just like the wrong thing to ask me.
It's such a trigger point for him.
It is because, and I didn't completely compose myself. I should have said, oh, we're at 205,000. Thanks so much for asking, but you should see our engagement numbers. Instead, I'm just like, why? Why'd you ask that?
VP of marketing. Just going to put that back out there. It was the VP of marketing. That's right. Yeah, keep going.
And the poor guy just like, he's just being polite to a bunch of content creators at an event. And I said, because the reality is, I said, honestly, what the question you should ask me is how many people are watching an average video right now? Because the answer to that is, is this year's around 90,000 people. And I was respectful and nice about it. But that's just not a surprise. In the YouTube world, that's our big dumb number is subscribers. If you have 100,000 subscribers and you get your plaque, you're the king of YouTube. You get a million subscribers and get a gold plaque, you're a bigger king of YouTube. And the reality is, we've got peers in our space that have a 500,000 subscribers versus our 200. And their average view per video is 10 to 12,000. Ours is 90. That means we're hugely bigger, way bigger, the most bigly in our space. And
technical term.
but you can't see that in asking me, hey Rob, how many subscribers you have right now? Because literally I want to go, no one cares. You should never look at that number. You need to say how many people are watching your videos right now. That way I can proudly say 90,000. And we do that because we're good at what we do. And we have the best editor possible working on our show.
It's true.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You didn't have to say that.